Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is James Jimmy Hills. I'm the host of Java with Jimmy. We are here. If you're watching during the day or in the evening, whenever you're watching, hello, good afternoon, good morning. But I am here talking with the acting commissioner of the Cannabis Control Commission here in Massachusetts, Aver Concepcion. Thank you so much for being here. There is a lot going on. First of all, I'm aware that you all came off of a 7-hour meeting. How you doing?
I have a lot of coffee in my system. We're
Java.
still
Yes.
Java, which is appropriate. I should have brought the Java in the room.
No, I should have had it for you.
But one thing I will say, so I'm the acting chair.
Acting chair.
Cannabis Control Commission.
What did I say? Acting commissioner?
Acting commissioner.
Oh, no, you're already a commissioner. Let's get that right.
Yeah. So I'm going into my 4th year now as a commissioner on the Cannabis Control Commission.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me ask that long meeting last night, you were moving in a space as a Black woman in a space of equity, in a space that is associated with a lot of money. That brings a lot of scrutiny, that brings a lot of work, that brings a lot of advocacy with it.
Absolutely.
How are you? I always ask my guests in elected positions and in, commissioner and type of positions, how they're doing, because you're a commissioner, yes, but at the end of the day, you're a human, you're a woman. And also the space that you're moving in, I'm presuming sometimes it may be interesting for you. I've seen some things in the media that we'll maybe touch on a little bit, but how are you doing? And then we're going to talk about the Cannabis Control Commission, because a lot of people may not really know what it is. There's a city entity, and then there's a state entity. And so I think giving the community some clarity around what the commission does, and it's so awesome for the clarity that you gave me that you're the acting chair.
Yes.
Chair. So how are you doing first?
So first, thank you for asking that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for recognizing there's a person underneath all of this.
We'll leave that alone.
A lot of my job is taking the individual out of it and just focusing on the agency and the industry and making sure that is good. But I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. Yesterday was a long day, like I said, but I'm still here, and I'm lucky in the sense that I have a job and a responsibility that doesn't feel like work.
Okay.
It's a
purpose-driven
thing. So I get really tired at times, but I know what I'm here for. I go home. I live in Mattapan now. It's I'm from Mattapan. But we talk a lot about areas that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. And it's not something that you just leave at the office, for me anyways. It's something that I live, I see, my family's been impacted. So I see that as a badge of honor. So I'm able to just keep on going in spite of any kind of fatigue I'm feeling.
This is personal to you.
Absolutely.
This is personal. Let me ask this, we're having a very authentic conversation. You said that you've seen it and you lived it in a sense. And I don't want to presume, sometimes you ask people, but I'm going to presume, maybe you've never had any interactions, with the system around marijuana and whatnot. But are you aware of family members or neighbors that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
My family is it's such a complicated family. On one end you have the national
yes. Can we just say and give a shout out?
Sure. So my cousin being James Clyburn, my grandmother being Representative William Allen. We've been involved in community and government.
So this isn't new to you.
So that's not new.
Yep.
But in the same vein, on the other side, I have really close family members who have been incarcerated, who have been impacted by the war on drugs, who have things on their system that are related to cannabis. So, I'm not running for anything. I'm not here because I want to, I have something else in my head that I'm trying to do. I'm here because this is something I'm passionate about. And when I'm speaking from my core. It makes it easier to just say what I mean and mean what I say.
I've never heard anyone frame that, I'm speaking from an authentic place, or I'm speaking from my soul, but you said you're speaking from, excuse me, your core. And so was that ability to speak from your core, like, how did you become aware of the commission, the application process? How did you land from that experience to being a commissioner? And then it's a little bit obvious how you're the acting chair, but how do you correlate or take us on the journey from that core experience to becoming a commissioner almost 4 years now, which I can't believe it's been almost 4 years.
I know. So where do I start? So like I mentioned, I'm from Boston.
Yep.
I'm here. I'm a native. I grew up in Mattapan. I always like to say like I'm one of 4 generations
in Mattapan.
Yep. And I say that a lot because I had an uncle who passed away not too long ago, and he was the self-proclaimed mayor of Mattapan. So
tell us who your uncle was.
Kelly Young. So this is my grandmother's son, her oldest, and he was killed in a motor vehicle accident.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. But I also feel like I'm carrying him with me whenever I talk about and amplify Mattapan, because that's who we are. But my husband's from the city too. From Dorchester. Like,
so you born and bred in Boston. What is it? Boston born and bred. And if they do right, I'll be Boston dead.
But it's helped me a lot. So anyways, I won't go into all the. I'm a BPS grad, Latin Academy, went to HBCU for undergrad. I got my degree in criminology. And when I came back home, I went to school in Charlotte, North Carolina, Johnson C. Smith University. But when I came back home, I worked at the DA's office as a victim witness advocate. So
under which DA?
Under Dan Connolly.
So that has some relevance under which DA? Because
I worked under 2 DAs though. But
Dan and
Rachel. So very different.
No, we're not. I was giving. We're going to stay focused today. I was just curious because we move in that space, and so so you worked at the DA's office. We'll continue the journey.
All right, I will try to shorten this because
no, that's good. I didn't want to dive into the differences.
I came back there. I was in the courtrooms. I was helping victims and witnesses of crime during really tough situations, probably the worst times in their lives, honestly. But I saw there weren't a lot of people who looked like me who were lawyers. I always had it in the back of my head, so I decided to go to law school. I went to New England Law. I graduated and I went to work for the Senate for State Senator Will Brownsberger. And he, at that point, was the co-chair of the Joint Judiciary Committee, and my job was to help write the Criminal Justice Reform Acts of 2018.
In general, Criminal Justice Reform Acts, not necessarily to do with cannabis.
Not necessarily, but there was overlap. So at the same time,
of course,
at the same time that was happening, cannabis was legalized.
And
the State House was working on what the legal regulated market would look like. And so one of my assignments was to look into what is happening for the people who have cannabis on their records. What's already in the law, what can happen. So I focused on the expungement and sealing laws and really important, really, really important. But at that time, we didn't have a statutory expungement law. So I worked on sort of creating.
So were you setting the foundation for that?
I was setting.
You never really know it. That's crazy.
It's all behind the scenes.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So first off, I every time I get the opportunity to talk about that experience, I have to talk about how much I love Senator Brownsberger, because he is someone who he doesn't care about credit. He doesn't care about, the publicity of things. But I was there for long hours and he was right there with me with staff, writing legislation, writing the laws, making sure we all understood what we were doing and the importance of it. So
he didn't go home. He stayed there with you all.
He didn't go home.
That says a lot for an elected.
I feel like I got an advanced law degree there. I got an advanced law degree just by working underneath him and understanding.
That says a lot.
So after doing that, Rachel Rollins started running for office and she won. And one of her jobs was to implement the new laws under the criminal justice reforms. And she needed a government head, someone who understood it.
And it was in it. And then had a foundation in it.
Had a foundation.
Helped write a little bit of it.
And all that jazz. And then I ended up going in that direction and being her head of government affairs. So I went back to the DA's office under the Rollins administration, and that was a phenomenal experience. she did a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work that needed to get done. So you cannot, take
Talk
away
about this
from
with that. Yeah. And shout out
Yeah.
to our former DA, Rachel Rollins, and former U.S. Attorney, Rachel Rollins. And it's that behind the scenes. People are so quick to put certain things in front in the scenes and never knowing and remembering
Yes.
what was done, some in front, but also behind as well. So
there's a lot that happens
absolutely.
behind the scenes. So then I actually didn't become a lawyer to practice cannabis law or to run the Cannabis Control Commission. That all happened while I was, I just happened.
It just happened.
I just happened to be there
in the right place,
in the right place,
in
at
the right time.
And I actually did not look for the Cannabis Control Commission. Former Commissioner Shalene Title, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Ava, she knew me from my work
from
at
the
the
way
State House.
exactly. Yep.
And she knew me as one of the people working behind the scenes on some of the cannabis related stuff. And she said, you should really look into this. I'm not the person who appoints, but you would really be phenomenal in the public safety seat."
Okay.
So the public safety seat, there are 3 appointing authorities at the Cannabis Control Commission.
Okay.
It's the Attorney General.
Yep.
It's the treasurer, and it's the governor.
Now, do they work? We can kind of go back and forth with the cannabis control understanding and then your journey there. All 3 of them get together and agree, or does one have a seat, one have a seat, one have a seat?
So they each have 3 different seats, and then there are 2 seats that are picked by all 3 of them. So there are 5 commissioners total.
Okay.
I'm the Attorney General's seat.
Appointee. Okay.
So I did apply. Maura Healy was the AG at
that time.
And she selected me. And, we went through the whole process, and she already was familiar with me, just from
because a lot of this fell under her office to some extent as the former AG.
Exactly.
So she has some grounding and foundation in this as well, going into the governorship. Okay.
Yes, she does. And so I will always appreciate now our governor because she gave me this opportunity. I'm her appointee.
She gave the opportunity, yes, and we don't want to credit that, but she saw the work and the longevity of you doing this. So you talked about the commission for 4 years. That time of being in the office with your former boss, how long ago was that? This is more than just 4 years. You've been doing this work for how long?
So that was, I started in his office in 2016.
So about 7 years. About 7 years doing this.
About 7 years. And that's not counting when I was in the courtrooms, because when I was a victim witness advocate, that was in 2010.
Okay. But when you talked about that too, let me just ask this off the top of your head. How many people did you have to be an advocate for that had cases to do with marijuana? Either it was a small amount, and I don't, victim witness,
there weren't. So my job was when there were victims involved.
Victim witness advocates. That's right. I heard victim witness advocate, but I'm thinking actually defense attorney for some reason. But you were more on the victim witness side, advocating for them, not necessarily at people who were harmed. I'll be honest. Another reason my brain went there, because we're aware of the harm of the inequity around the marijuana industry. So maybe that conflated in my head.
I love that your mind went there. That's a huge function of my role now, and that's something that people don't necessarily realize. But I'll wait.
No. Let's go. No, let's go into that. So let's talk about the commission. You were appointed by now Governor Healy, and 4 years ago, and this is all new. You were around when marijuana became legal in Massachusetts, and now there's the commission, and you're there. You're part of the, I don't know what the cycle is, but you're one of the inaugural commission.
No.
You're not.
I'm not. So I'm a part of the second wave. So now
there was a whole nother wave of.
There was a whole nother wave.
Oh wow.
There were 5 before this. Now 4.
Okay.
Now, it was Shalene Title, Jennifer Flanagan, Kay Doyle, Britta McBride, and Steve Hoffman.
Okay.
Those are the first 5, and they had to create this whole thing. They had to create the agency. They had to create the regulations. They had to do all that, and that only happened about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So it's you would think that the regulated cannabis industry has been here for
a while, but it's only about 6 years.
It's only
Okay.
We just reached that point.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Cannabis Control Commission. What does it do besides sit in long meetings for 7 hours? Also moving toward equity. And this iteration of the commission there's only been 2 iterations. The diversity is higher in this iteration. Okay. You can tell how by the legislation. I know Commissioner Camargo, I was going to say her first name. She just had an article not too long ago about a lot of the work that she did, I believe, in Commonwealth. And so you're seeing the impact of presumably life experience of these commissioners. And so what does the commission do in sort of a layman's approach?
So the easiest way to say it is we are there are states, there are cities and towns, and they have their own processes. But the Cannabis Control Commission, we oversee the entire state.
Okay.
So we regulate the entire industry, no matter where you are. If you're in Boston, if you're in, Brookline, anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere. So if you want to be licensed, your application has to eventually get to our eyes, and we decide who's licensed, who's not. We also determine the rules they have to follow to work and be in this industry.
Okay.
So we create those rules. So we approve licenses and we create the rules.
Now, speaking of approving licenses, I just want to go through and give some credit because we talk about a 7-hour meeting, but and all of this information is always public, and so we were able to obtain it. But changes in ownership was about 10. Renewals was about 2. You all vote on these and review these.
Yes.
So that's a piece of it too.
We have a team. So I don't want to take away from, we have a staff of over 100 people who, if you're up and running, there's investigators that are always out, and you might know that they're coming, you might not know they're coming, but they come to make sure that everyone is following the rules the right way. And then there's a licensing team that does their own evaluations and make sure that people are following security measures and have different plans in place. But it's a process.
So let me also clarify or ask for clarity. You're not just regulating dispensaries. I think a lot of people would presume, oh, it's just the dispensaries. You're regulating everything. And I don't know if this is a right term, but from seed to smoke.
Yes. No, that's
from seed to smoke. From seed to smoke.
Cultivators, it's product manufacturers, it's retailers, it's delivery licensees.
Yes.
So there's a lot in independent testing labs. So the labs that actually test the products to see their potency levels and make sure that there's no additives. So there's a lot. And there's a lot of people who are working in this space throughout the state.
So that is interesting. And shout out to the other 100 staff. So there's the commission, and you would presume a commission has a staff, maybe 5, 6 or whatever, but your 100 employees actually are responsible for going throughout the state and then ensuring and inspecting every level: cultivators, dispensaries, growers, testers.
All of it.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, I asking for a friend. Is the testers are independent from the growers and stuff, right? There's no relation and stuff, and so you keep that separate so there's no favoritism and things like that. Okay, that was just a thought that crossed my mind. I was just curious. Okay, because I just for potency is a very important point in so I was just curious as we have the commissioner here.
Okay.
All right. In all seriousness, though, this is for understanding and backup. This is a 6-year sort of entity. You're part of the second iteration of it, and it's the most diverse. And so let's delve minimally into often when there is a lot of movement toward diversity and equity, there's movement to pull back that. And first of all, anything that I'm saying has nothing to do and not the opinion of our commissioner or the commission here. And so I just wanted, it's been in the media. There's been, unfortunately, need for demonstration of more equity in leadership. And my understanding is, in looking at these notes and different things, that there has been some change. There was some statements made, and I believe our treasurer, who is one of, so wherever you have to say, Jimmy, I can't talk about this, just say it. Would the appointing person also be the same person that can take that appointment?
Yes.
Is that where?
That's by law.
That's by law.
That's by law. So Andrea Campbell, if she felt that we have an enhanced code of ethics.
Yes.
It's on purpose.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
But if there is anything in my own conduct that violates the law as it's stated, because there are reasons, there are descriptive reasons why you can remove a commissioner.
Yep.
she can yank me out of there.
Okay. And for clarity, it's not like you got appointed by the AG at that time. AG can pull the AG appointment. The governor can pull. That's how it works.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so presumably, the person who was has departed was appointed by the treasurer. And so the treasurer's like, hey, I'm aware of this. I have to rescind because I know there was some language about does she have the authority or the right? It's by law. From what you said, it's just by.
Well, I think the question now, and it's weird because what I learned,
Mhm.
and I know there's sirens.
Wait. I think these mics are pretty good.
Okay.
I think, but no, thank you for observing that. We're just real here, y'all.
The interesting thing that you might be surprised by is I get my information on what's happening with the treasurer and her appointee through the news.
Yeah.
The same way, because it's separate, it's outside of my own realm. So my understanding comes from the reporting of it.
Okay.
Documents that have been released.
Because there's ethics and walls, various separations. So
it's on purpose.
So there's not this conflict of interest. Yes.
Right. Yep. So but I believe the question is around if the treasurer can suspend. It's clear that she can remove.
Okay.
But there's never
been a suspension while you needed to look. So in some sense, there wasn't a quick suspension. There was, hey, we're aware. Let's look into this. And then while we look into this, a perception of harm, and you always err on the side of harm. And again, this is just by because I'm getting it from the news too. Deb Goldberg was like, And so there has been, business still has to happen.
Right.
How many times have you been voted as the acting chair?
Okay. Oh my God, you asked me a question. I had to jog my memory.
Oh, sorry.
A couple times now. But yesterday was the fourth and final. But there have been 3 times before that.
Yep.
And it was during a time where you might be familiar, there was this massive equity law for cannabis. Chapter 180 is what we call it. And I would say we, because it's been a collective, have been fighting for some changes for increased equity in the cannabis space for the longest.
That was some of the points that Commissioner Camargo was talking about in the article, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I think that might be the joint op-ed that she and I did. Is it Commonwealth Beacon?
I think so.
Okay.
Is it both? Oh, yeah. Because I do remember flashback memory. Your name was both of you with. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And she's phenomenal.
Yep. Shout out to our other commissioners.
And we're the first 2 commissioners to have the lived experiences that we have. We're both from, she's from an inner city community. Same. We know that we're not disconnected from what we're talking about.
It informs your ability to write true equitable. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And we know that people will call us out on it. And it's a space where if you mess up in the Cannabis Control Commission, the people who are working in this industry, the people who are impacted by it, they're going to let you know.
If they feel that a piece of legislation or decision that the Control Commission made and they share your same life experience, one, what you say to me is you're accessible.
Yep.
You're from community, so you're going to see people, maybe going out or whatever. You got to go home. Yeah. And so someone may call and say, hey, Ava, you remember, come on, you remember how it is. And this is how it's going to impact us. That gives you that sort of ability to liaise from the street and taking it into presumably the House. Tell us a little bit about that. You said Chapter 180?
Yes. So Chapter 180, one, it gives us the ability now, we will be reviewing all host community agreements. So host community agreements are those contracts that potential licensees enter into with towns and municipalities where they want to be located. So the city of Boston has their cannabis board.
Yep.
They look through HCAs, but we now have the ability to review their process.
In case there may be some inequities in some of how the cities are running their.
Exactly. So now there are also municipal equity requirements that we set for cities and towns to follow. Okay. So that's all a part of the new law. The other thing, and it's something that I've been really, really vocal about, is a change to our suitability requirements. Because for whatever reason, the commission had regulations in place that said if you had certain records, you couldn't even work in cannabis.
Not even a job.
Not even a job.
Okay. So suitability wasn't a facility. It was suitability for employees.
For employees.
Okay.
It's background checks. It's criminal. It's not just criminal.
Yep.
But the piece that I was so fixated on, and it's because I came from, I've worked so long on criminal justice reform.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I get into this space and you're seeing, okay, these are collateral consequences. We're punishing people who we should be saying, come on into this space, come take advantage of this now. You were a part of an era, really.
Yep.
That
Back in the street pharmacology days. Listen, and you got a skill set.
And you have a skill set, but we're saying you're barred and you're banned from being here. It was like
More inequity.
It didn't make any sense.
Yes. Yep.
It didn't make any sense. So that is also a major change that happened with Chapter 180 now. So now we're not allowed to do that. The Cannabis Control Commission is banned by law from having a full out restriction like that for people who want to work in the space.
And are you also responsible for ensuring that the city entities, and so that also gives some oversight and freedom to all the cultivators, dispensary testers. They now have this cap off of them where they can hire people that have was it always their decision, or now is it that it's legal that you can't, in a sense, is discriminate the right word?
Now they have discretion, and you still have to, employers can't just say, no, we're not allowing people who have a criminal record in, because it's illegal.
Generally, that's generally away from the cannabis piece. Yes.
But before the law passed, the Cannabis Control Commission said, no, actually, we're going to say if you did this and this and this and this and this, it was a long list.
Still some level of control.
Then don't even apply.
Okay.
Don't try to work here because you are, sometimes it was for a certain amount of years. Sometimes it was an all out ban. It was just, you're not safe to work in this space.
I know you look at data, but just off the top of your head, nothing concrete. When you all looked at that, what was the percentage of Black and brown and maybe women who fell into that category? Off the top of your head, just a general, vague. Was it big? Was it medium? Was it small?
I don't know.
Okay.
And the reason why I don't know, though, is because some employers we didn't always know when it was happening.
Not reporting.
They weren't reporting. And then there was so they wouldn't even get past a certain point to come, for employment, or employers wouldn't take the extra step to ask the CCC, to
for some
that. So they were being, prematurely barred, even if, technically speaking, even if these people could have passed our standards at the time, because it was through an abundance of caution.
Okay. And we'll frame it like that, an abundance of caution. We'll frame it like that. I know you have a lot to do, and we're going to get in. Yeah. I want to get ready to wrap up, but I want to ensure that the community understands that the Cannabis Control Commission is still getting work done. I mean, you just talked about 180. It's the most diverse commission in its 2 iterations. No disrespect to the first iteration. What can we look forward from the commission coming in 24? Also, I need to ask, because I'm personally invested, like, what is your term? And then start with, what is your term? How long is your term?
So my term is a 5-year term. I'm going into the 4th year. It concludes in 2026. And technically, I could come on for another term. There's a 2-term limit, but it's 5 years each time. But as acting chair, I don't know how long I will be acting chair. So the way that it is now, it's
and thank you for bringing us back to that, because there's some significance to acting chair, because you said 4th and final. Yes. So that says to me that there's some legislation that says if there is a absence of a chair and the same acting is voted for, does that mean that you?
No. So
why 4th and final though?
Well, that was a commission decision. That was a vote. So there were votes. It's very public.
Listen, I got everything right here.
The first 2 happened within the same week of September, and that's when we were going through the voting for the Chapter 180 rules.
Yep.
Then there was another one in October. So that's 3.
And then last
night.
What is the significance of the final? They voted to say what?
Until the appointing authority
makes a decision. Okay.
So the appointing authority is the only person who could place a permanent chair in this.
And the appointing authority now for the chair becomes the 3, the AG. No,
it's the treasurer, and that's by law. It's still the treasurer.
We're gonna have to do a part 2. Because
I don't mind.
I wouldn't mind it either, because we need, in all thy getting, get an understanding. And there was a lot in the information. Shout out to Tara and the team over at the commission for making sure I had the information. But I wanted to lay a foundation. One about you. One about the commissioners, generally speaking, to ensure that the public is aware that there are commissioners there whose motive is equity and diversity, and not a lot of noise that's been being put out in the media, and so it was important. Reached out and said, hey, there's a lot going on. Can we converse? I thank you for that, because sometimes, commissions and different state entities is kind of hard, but they made it happen. All that to say, you're welcome to come back and keep us abreast. And I would love to, at some point, if you wanted to, or Press thinks it's cool, some sort of public question and answer, or getting people to come to a meeting or help co-host a meeting in community, anything like that. And always keep us abreast if the people need to know. And now I know you're a commissioner, so you can't be out here advocating and whatnot. But if the people need to know and we need to get something out there and you need support, platforms here.
Can I tell you one?
Yes, please. A few, go ahead. Whenever. A few things.
When I first came on, the biggest problem that I had, at least, was just getting people to pay attention to what was happening here.
Yes, ma'am.
And people are paying attention, but they're paying attention to a lot of like the external sort of nonsense.
Yes.
But this is a now multi-billion-dollar industry in the state. And there's tax revenue here, there's employment opportunities here, but there's also a requirement for any business to give back to communities that have been hit hardest by the war on drugs.
Now, when you say give back,
so yes,
that means money, y'all.
And that can be money, it can be, but resources,
time, resources, there's space or whatever.
And so we need, and this is something that's in my mind. It's like just making sure we can figure out who was receiving everything. I mean, we get the positive impact plans, is what they're called. We review them. But I don't think our communities understand that completely. And I don't think they're taking complete advantage of what's happening here, because there's a lot of resources.
Is there a process in which, okay, let me, one of my friends, so he knows that I'm just using his Apex, not in a residential area, but our friend, Tito Jackson, Apex, would a resident in that area approach you all and say, hey, I don't see Apex doing anything but serving customers. I don't feel that there's a positive community impact. How does the community, how would you like to see them hold those that should be making a more positive impact more accountable? And again, disclaimer, Tito is my friend, and I just thought about Apex, so this is no point or anything, nor from the commissioner. But how would you like your ideal way of the community ensuring that they receive that positive impact? How would you like to see that happen?
That's a good question.
We can do it in part 2 if need be.
We might. I like that question, because it makes me think a little bit beyond sort of what I've been thinking, because yesterday was there were a lot of
y'all could go find what is it, 12, 14 pages of notes? It's a lot of pages of notes.
The delivery conversation was massive yesterday. So that was a huge part of my focus between that, and there was a vote yesterday about the acting chairwomanship now.
Yeah, chairwomanship.
But we have to, as commissioners, review all the positive impact plans. So we call them PIPs. These are plans that if you are Apex, if you are any licensee, you have to submit to the commission, laying out how you're giving back, what's your plan, so on and so forth.
Is there follow-up?
There is.
There is. Okay.
There is. And that's something that's during the renewal process.
Okay.
So when you look through the renewals, the commissioners and the staff kind of look back to see, are you actually doing what you said?
If they're smart, they're putting pictures, they're putting copies of donations that they made. They sponsored the Christmas party.
That's right. But I will say at the beginning, I'm saying at the beginning, but it's such a short span of time, but it feels so long. But when I first got to the commission, one of the things that I would hear is the businesses didn't know where to put the resources. They didn't know who would accept it. There's some people who are a little bit weird about cannabis. They may not want to take the risk. So it's a good question you're asking, because this is something that needs to be connected.
Well, if you need any help with the connection, I would be glad to, because it is, that's the whole point. My first in-person Java with Jimmy was called Green Space. It was about equity in somebody you may know, Joseph Gilmore was one of my guests. We were talking about equity in the cannabis industry, and then also Black spaces for like events and whatnot. And so this is something that the Java Cafe is very committed to. And, I don't know if it's looking at, because, some of the folks aren't going to look at all the notes that come out.
What would be helpful?
What?
So I wrote an article about this a couple years. It's about called the DIAs. It was in the Globe. It was an op-ed I wrote around communities that have been disproportionately harmed, but it talks about how the intersection and how people, even if you don't want to work in this industry, even if you don't partake or consume,
there are different ways.
You're still getting impacted, whether you know it or not. It's happening now, but people don't understand that completely. But there's a good, I'm just going to suggest for anyone watching, if you want to look at that too, it just goes out to sort of how we identify the areas and what goes into that decision and how that plays a part. So even Boston, for example, because it's one of the larger communities, it's not the entire city of Boston. It's certain census tracts.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And that's decided about where the most inequities were, presumably.
Right. Yes. Right. And it's an important conversation. It's something that we will revisit as a commission. And we want to make sure we're engaging the communities that have been identified as that. But it goes into what that means, what that means for those communities, what you receive as being a part of that DIA list, and the fact that even the hiring decisions plays a part when you have, when you're identified as being on that list.
We, I think, just touched the surface today.
There's a lot.
There is a lot, but at some point, I don't know, Tara or Press, whatever, we'll have to figure out a way, maybe to do every 60 days or, quarterly cannabis.
Yeah.
The Java Cafe quarterly cannabis update.
I love it. Can I say so?
Yes.
And you can wrap me. This is on my bucket list, so I'm happy to be here.
What you mean?
I've been watching you since Facebook.
Commissioner, we're at time. The thing says that we're at time. All of our recording space is out. So no, thank you. Because
seriously, I've been watching because there's from the community.
Yes, ma'am.
There are two sources right now for me that I'm just like, I gotta watch, I gotta see. And it's you, Java with Jimmy, and the Bay State banner. And I just want to say you've been just congratulations, because you've gotten to such a, people are recognizing.
You're not going to do this to me. We're going to edit this out.
That's fine. I'm just saying.
No, I appreciate it. I'm getting better.
So, yeah.
I'm getting better. You see, I'm up here all closed off and whatnot. It just because the goal is
because you earned it and you've done a lot.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. It as long as we're having impact, and if I don't know who's going to watch this, but I don't know if some, 30-year-old that just got out and applied somewhere and feels that they were discriminated against, and may reach out to your office and get some resources and help. Go into an industry, reach out. And so we'll make sure that in the graphics, we put the information up. But they may reach out to you and say, hey, I need advocacy. They get a job. They're able to supply for their family. You just never know. So impact, Commissioner, is always my goal. Thank you for the acknowledgement and accolades. But as long as I get 1 or 2 messages or tweets a month that there's impact, we'll keep doing this. And so you're welcome to come back, keep us abreast. There's some other spaces I'm sure you could speak to as well. From fashion to you cook.
I do cook.
You do cook?
Yes.
Well, let me ask, we're getting ready to go into the holidays.
Yeah.
What, if you could tell all the cannabis folks in Massachusetts, what is your holiday greeting?
What is my holiday
greeting? Yes.
What do you mean?
Like any salutations? Like, what are you doing for Christmas? You know how all the, you were bigwig. You know how the bigwigs put their little commercials and stuff out and get recorded. We can just zoom in right on you with the camera and say, hey, on behalf.
I don't think I was ready for that. I was ready for anything else to talk about.
Not the holiday greeting.
I'm like, the holidays. I need a nap.
Well, there's a few things, happy trees, happy holidays. No, I'm messing. But just you want to simply say happy holidays. Is that easy?
Happy holidays.
She went through all of these questions and whatnot, and the simplest, most easy that you've been celebrating for, let's say, 28 years.
You can tell my mind is not on the holidays. That's
your mind is on the work.
Bad. My mind is on the work.
Now that leads me
I didn't realize that you just asked me that. I'm like, that's right. I don't even have a tree up yet. So
you can't work at the Cannabis Control Commission not have a tree up yet, and then that does not impose that she's a consumer. But anyway, what was oh man, listen, this is ending very well. Okay. I'm glad that we're able to give you a little bit of black joy, because this is very heavy, and ensuring that folks get equity and be included at least. And it's so important that you and the other commissioners, and I don't know the other two's name, so I'm going to ask her to do it, but Commissioner Camargo Nurdis, who I've known from community for years and have seen her ascend, into this leadership position. So shout out to Nerdy. This is all with due respect, Commissioner Camargos. But who are the other two commissioners?
Bruce Stebbins and Kimberly Roy.
Kimberly Roy and Bruce Stebbins. You all are blessed to work with two wonderful queens, and I'm sure that they feel that they're blessed to work with you too as well. And so, Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
That was easy.
Yep, that was fine.
Shout out to Brother Brandon Matthews and those here at and I'm authentic. What's the name? Who I shout out? Who else? Killer Boombox and Show Off Marketing for this wonderful space here. Y'all should come see it at some point. And well, hit me if you need to come see it because it's a little private space. Peace, everybody. Again, shout out to press at the Cannabis Control Commission, Brandon, Greg, Killer Boombox, Show Off Marketing, and we will talk with you in a couple of months. Keep us abreast.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move this away.